In 2022, my life changed in ways I never expected. It started with a favor I did for another person. What kind of favor that was is only secondary for the following report, so it will not be discussed in detail. When I finished this favor, I received probably the greatest compliment because this person said to me, "You're an angel." I know it's just a phrase, but in that moment, I felt like that one sentence answered hundreds of my questions. This sentence did not seem to me to have been chosen at random, but rather meticulously planned. To understand that, I have to go back to my childhood. I had a very nice childhood, grew up lovingly and lacked nothing. But something was different. I've often been noticed by others because of certain things. Some of my abilities showed up earlier or were more developed compared to others of my age. I was able to read short sequences of letters from an early age. I could tell the time fairly accurately, although I couldn't read the clock yet. I could quickly memorize related texts verbatim. And a few other things. The most amazing detail was that restless children quickly changed in my presence. I didn't really notice it that much back then, but I can still remember it, also through stories. In kindergarten we had a boy in our group of which everyone was scared because he kept hitting, screaming and biting others. When I was around him, these behaviors disappeared. This also continued through the school years that followed. Teachers would even purposely sit disruptive classmates next to me, recognizing that then they would be quiet and attentive. There was also a certain incident that stuck in my memory to this day. A boy came to our class and attracted attention because of his severe misconduct. He had temper tantrums, screamed, hit classmates and teachers, and even bit them. Then he was seated next to me and already he was calm and attentive. Once when I left the room briefly to go to the restroom and came back again, the boy was standing in front of the classroom angrily. He threw a tantrum while I was away and attacked our teacher with his ruler, injuring her. Actually, I always approached other people impartially and always tried to treat everyone equally and fairly. But after he hurt the teacher, I didn't want to help him impartially. It was clear to me that there is good and evil and I thought that he would get his lesson at some point. Then as now, I also believed in life after death. Apparently I've always had a connection to the spiritual world. Why was I able to do better than others? Why did people change for the better in my presence? Why was my sense of justice always so strong? And why was life after death so strangely familiar to me? All of these questions seem to be answered with the sentence, "You are an angel." In early 2023 I began to study angels. I recognized myself in the information and felt validated. Then one night I was lying in bed. Suddenly this sentence flashed through my head, "If you've enjoyed your life, you can come back to us." After that, within that second, a feeling of happiness and love swept over me. I was certain that this was an angelic message because that thought didn't fit at all with my other thoughts that night. Afterwards I contacted the angels more often. They made me understand that I am the only angel in my earthly family and that I was blessed by God to come to earth. It is my job to encourage truth and justice here on earth, since many people are no longer doing it enough. I am an angel of God who has to work with words, which explains why I was able to read so early and memorize texts quickly and for a long time. Now comes the most amazing part of my experiences so far. Up to now everything has been happening in the earthly dimension, but that changed with this event. It was summer of 2023. The weather was nice and it was warm. I lay down on the bench in the garden to enjoy the weather. I closed my eyes but didn't sleep. I was fully aware at all times that I was dozing in the garden. Suddenly I saw a flower meadow in front of me. It wasn't very wide, maybe 100 meters, but stretched in length to the horizon. It looked like an airstrip made of grass and flowers. Dark conifers stood left and right, forming a forest on either side. I couldn't intervene in what was happening. I was just a spectator as a person, looking through the eyes of my spirit self. Then I saw beings of light coming out of the forest to the left and right of the meadow. I instinctively knew they were angels. No taller than the average human. They radiated a bright white light and had no wings or recognizable body. I don't know if I had a body, I certainly didn't see it. The angels took turns standing between the trees. Angel, tree, angel, tree, and so on. It looked like they were standing guard. Suddenly a huge angel came towards me from the front. He could fly, I didn't see his wings, but I felt his wing beat. Then he stood in front of me. He was so big I couldn't even see his bottom half, nor did I want to. He was so sublime and majestic. Then we communicated. He spoke in my current voice, but more in the form of telepathy. He said, "My great friend, your services are needed, so I am sending you to Earth now." It was interesting what he called me. Because my current first name means, the great friend. So I have a corresponding name here in earthly life. Then I turned around for the first time and saw the other side of the meadow. It was just as wide and stretched to the horizon. It looked identical. But the entire area was spanned by a huge structure. It is perhaps comparable to the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. At the top of the building was a golden rod that loomed high. He pointed to a yellow-red light floating up there like a bubble of light. The big angel behind me said again in my voice, "Go." It sounded assertive, but definitely not evil. Rather motivating. I flew up to the light and heard my wings beating. The meadow below me became smaller and smaller. Then I flew into the bubble of light. It had opened and closed again. Then time passed. No idea how much. The bubble opened again, this time above me. A cold white light greeted me and I knew this was the maternity ward. This is how my earthly life began. After that, this movie was over. I opened my eyes and lay on the garden bench. Everything was normal. But now, having seen all this, I have no doubts that in my nature I am what we on earth call angels. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I know that too. My job is to strengthen truth and justice, and that's what I do. I am sharing my truth here because all people who are open to it find comfort in the fact that angels are on earth. Nevertheless, I would like to remain anonymous for the time being. But that might change as the world becomes a little more open to the big picture.